There was a knock. Not the kind you hear from a neighbor bringing cookies. No, this was deliberate, precise, like a warning shot disguised as courtesy. Raymond opened the door slowly. Gloria stood there, lips pursed, eyes sharp like a hawk in heels. In her hand, a violation notice. Your vehicle, she said, is improperly parked. Section 14.3 of the HOA guidelines. Driveway clearance must be exact. This one's an inch over. Raymond didn't flinch. He stared at the paper, then back at her. It's my driveway. Gloria's voice lowered. I know who your brother was, Raymond. Let's not make things difficult. She walked away without waiting for a response. Left a silence behind that didn't feel empty. It felt loaded. Raymond stepped outside. The sun was blinding, but not enough to hide the glances from other neighbors. Curtains moved. Garage doors closed faster than usual. Something was off. Back inside, his niece Erin sat cross-legged on the living room floor, headphones in, sketching in her notebook. She looked up, sensed something wasn't right. She caught a glimpse of the notice in his hand, the tension in his jaw. They said anything about Dad? Raymond didn't answer. He tossed the notice in the trash and walked into the garage. That night, the truck was gone. No explanation, no courtesy call. Just an oil stain where it used to sit. Erin's voice cracked as she stared at the empty space. Did they steal it? Raymond paced. She noticed something lodged under the mailbox post. A black device, no bigger than a thumb drive. A tracker. Chilling realization bled into his eyes. That's not HOA standard. That's something else. He pulled out his old storage box, the one with his brother's service tags and sealed files. But the documents were gone. Only an old photo remained, his brother standing beside that same truck. Except in the photo, the truck had government plates. Midnight. Raymond walked down the street, alone, hands in his jacket pockets. The air was too still. He noticed Gloria's house still lit. Voices inside. He crept closer, listening. She was on the phone. I don't care what clearance he has. If he finds it, we lose control of the entire sector. He's just like his brother. A threat. Raymond's heart pounded like a war drum. His brother's death had always been labeled an accident, a leak, an explosion. But now it felt like something else. Something planned. Morning came like a slap. Erin didn't show up for breakfast. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Raymond called the school. They said she never arrived. He ran to the curb, eyes darting up and down the street. Nothing. Then he saw it. An envelope under the door. Inside was a printed photo of Erin, bound to a chair, a red X drawn across her face. Everything stopped. Blood froze. Knees buckled. This wasn't HOA madness anymore. This was war. And the driveway was just the opening move. The photo burned in Raymond's hand like acid. Erin's face was bruised, the lighting dim, but unmistakable. That red X wasn't just a mark, it was a warning. A deadline. He tore out of the house, scanning every angle of the street. Neighbors watched from behind blinds. No one came out. No one offered help. He was alone. Gloria's SUV rolled past, slow, deliberate. She didn't stop, didn't wave, just smiled, tight, smug, poisonous. The same smile people wear when they think they've already won. Raymond broke into the HOA office that night. He picked the lock with a bent house key and a screwdriver, just like his brother had taught him years ago. The place smelled like fresh paint and stale coffee. He moved fast. File cabinet. He kicked it open. Pages scattered like frightened birds. Petty violations, landscaping fines. Then he found it. A faded document, watermarked with a state seal. Easement authorization 2006, access point reserved, property ID 17B-H-245. His property. He turned the page and froze. A map. A red dot marked on his driveway. The word stamped below it. Surveillance cable access, level 4 clearance only. He backed away, hands shaking. His home wasn't just a home. It was a lid over something buried, something watched, something they didn't want found. He heard footsteps outside. Flashlight beams danced across the window. He ducked behind a desk. Radio chatter crackled. We've got movement inside. Confirm entry. They weren't police. No badges. No insignias. Black boots. Gray gloves. Tactical silence. Raymond bolted through the back, hopped a fence, rolled into a ditch. Breath ragged. Vision tunneling. He ran all the way to Walt's house, his quiet old neighbor, the one who never spoke much but always nodded like he knew more than he let on. Walt opened the door in silence. Didn't ask questions. Just handed him a box. Inside, an old badge. His brother's. Alongside a small, dust-covered device. A field recorder. Labeled Eden. Walt whispered, barely audible. They buried him to cover it. Your driveway was his post. He kept them out. Now they want back in. Raymond gripped the badge, throat tight. His brother hadn't died in an accident. He died guarding something bigger than both of them. He rushed back home before dawn. Every drawer, every wall panel, he searched like a man possessed. And then, in the crawl space under the garage, he found it. A steel trapdoor, welded shut, buried beneath layers of cement. But a corner had been chipped. Recently, someone else had already tried to open it. Erin. Her initials were scratched into the cement. EC with a heart. Raymond dropped to his knees, fingers digging at the seal. The silence above him grew louder. Then headlights flooded the garage. Engines. Doors slamming. Voices outside. Open up. Police. But they weren't police. Raymond knew those boots now. And this time, they weren't asking. He reached for his brother's badge, gripped it tight like a weapon. If they wanted the spot, they'd have to take it from him. They kicked the door in like they owned the place. Black uniforms. No names. No words. Just motion, controlled, surgical, lethal. Raymond barely slipped through the side window. His knees hit the ground hard. But pain didn't matter now. Not with Erin missing. Not with ghosts crawling out of the past wearing body armor. He ran through the alley behind the garages, every footstep echoing louder than the last. He needed air. He needed time. He needed a plan. By sunrise, he was in the next town, inside a cracked booth at an abandoned truck stop diner. No staff. No service. Just silence and a single coffee machine that spat steam like it hated him. He laid the badge on the table. His brother's initials still etched along the back. DC. It used to mean something. Now it felt like a target. The field recorder Walt gave him looked fried. But there was a port, a micro jack barely visible. Raymond plugged it into his old backup drive. Static. Then a voice. This is Daniel Cross. Codename Eden Guardian. If you're hearing this, it means the protocol's failed. The spot's been compromised. Raymond's throat clenched. His brother's voice sounded calm, tired, haunted. They buried a state listening cable under our street. Top-level clearance. Pre-Patriot Act stuff. When I found out, they offered me a deal. Keep quiet, guard it, or to disappear. I chose the third option. Figured dying was easier than betraying everyone. He paused the audio. Hands shaking. That driveway wasn't just a slab of concrete. It was a lid to a vault of secrets. A wiretap on a national scale. Hidden beneath the feet of suburban families who never had a clue. And Gloria? She wasn't HOA. She was control. Leverage. Disguise. How better to monitor a community than by ruling it? Raymond needed answers. Real ones. The kind that come with risk. He made the call. An old number. One he hadn't dialed in years. It rang once. Sloan. The voice was dry, low. Professional with a hint of pity. You were told to stay out, Ray. Raymond gritted his teeth. Where's Erin? Sloan sighed. She found what we buried. That's a problem. Raymond slammed the phone shut. Every second was tightening into a noose. He headed back to Walt's, only to find flashing lights and paramedics. Walt was being loaded into the back of an ambulance, oxygen mask on, eyes barely open. Raymond forced his way in, gripping Walt's arm. Where is she? Walt's lips moved. Barely a whisper. The kill list. Check the blueprints. Then he flatlined. Raymond stood frozen. They were eliminating every loose end tied to the project. Every witness. every protector. He drove to city records, bluffed his way in, claimed he was doing renovations. The clerk didn't even look up. Inside the dusty archive room, he found it. The original zoning blueprint from 1996. His heart stuttered as he unrolled the paper. Underneath his house, marked in faded red ink, was a cable path labeled Sovereign Link Tier 4 Asset, and beside it, barely legible, Eden. The conduit didn't end at his house. It stretched across the entire neighborhood. Every driveway, every yard, every address. The HOA wasn't managing a suburb. They were guarding a surveillance grid, and now they wanted it back. As he stepped into the sunlight, a sharp sound cracked the air. A gunshot. The rearview mirror on his truck shattered. He ducked, sprinted, breath shallow. They'd found him. Again. But this time, he wouldn't run. He'd burn it all to the ground if it meant saving Aaron. The warehouse smelled like rust and secrets. Raymond had ditched his truck 5 blocks back and slipped in through a broken loading dock. His mind was a cyclone of half-finished thoughts, memories of Aaron's laugh, and his brother's last words echoing over static. In the corner of the warehouse sat a man in a folding chair, face shadowed, hands gloved. "Sloan, you made it this far," he said, not impressed. "That's farther than we expected." Raymond didn't speak. He just stared. Sloan stood slowly, voice calm like a surgeon, before the first cut. "We never meant for it to reach her. Aaron wasn't part of the equation. But she wandered too close. Found the trapdoor. Triggered a proximity alert." Raymond's fist clenched. "She's 16. She didn't trigger anything." Sloan shook his head. "You're wrong. That girl cracked a federal lock without even knowing it. She activated Eden." Raymond took a step forward. "Where is she?" Sloan raised a hand, and a panel behind him clicked. Lights blinked on, revealing a glass room. Inside, Aaron sat tied to a chair, bruised but breathing. Her eyes widened when she saw Raymond. She mouthed something he couldn't hear. Sloan tapped a button, lowering the soundproofing. "She told us everything she saw under that trapdoor. The whole system came back online. She has access, Ray. And we can't have that." Raymond stared at Aaron, then back at Sloan. "Let her go." Sloan laughed once, dry and bitter. "You think this is about her? Or you? This is about control. Information. Legacy. Your brother was a leak. You're a leftover." Raymond lunged, but 2 guards tackled him from the shadows. He hit the ground hard, the wind knocked out of him. Sloan crouched beside him. "You could have lived quiet, but you just had to dig." Raymond's eyes burned. "So did you." Then the lights exploded. Glass shattered. Sirens wailed. Smoke filled the warehouse as a figure burst through the side entrance, someone Raymond didn't recognize. Masked, armed, precise. One of the guards went down in a single hit. Then the other. Sloan scrambled for cover, firing blindly into the haze. The stranger grabbed Raymond's hand, yanked him up. "Let's go. I've got her." Raymond didn't hesitate. He followed, weaving through gunfire and smoke. The glass room's door was ajar now, Aaron inside screaming his name. He scooped her up, blood pounding through every limb. Behind them, Sloan shouted something lost in the chaos. They jumped into a van idling outside, tires screeching as they peeled out of the alley. Inside, Aaron cried into his chest. "They wanted me to open it, Uncle Ray. They said the system was sleeping until someone with my blood unlocked it." Raymond stared at her. "What do you mean, your blood?" She pulled up her sleeve. A small birthmark. A symbol. Identical to the one etched on his brother's old badge. She was more than just family. She was the key. The masked driver turned. "She's the last guardian, Raymond." Eden chose her. Raymond's throat tightened. "What happens now?" The driver looked back toward the road, voice flat. "Now we show them what happens when the watchers become the watched." Behind them, fire bloomed in the warehouse. Smoke curled into the sky. The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. They ditched the van on a forest trail 2 counties out. The masked driver, who now introduced herself only as Naira, moved with silent precision, like she'd been trained in shadows. She handed Raymond a burner phone and a folded blueprint, Eden's mainframe diagram. "You've got one shot," she said. "After this, they'll scorch every inch of ground behind us." Erin sat by the campfire, arms wrapped tight around her knees, eyes fixed on the flames. She hadn't spoken since the van. Raymond crouched beside her. "We'll end this. I swear it." She nodded, but didn't look up. Raymond traced the blueprint with trembling fingers. The lines weren't just data, they were arteries. Eden's spine ran beneath the HOA's development, coiled beneath swing sets, garden sheds, and fake mailboxes. What looked like suburban perfection was wired to listen, record, and feed everything to a cold state system. Raymond's house had been the central hub, his driveway the switch, and Erin, her DNA activated it. They moved before sunrise. 3 hours of silence, traveling back roads in a rusted pickup with missing plates. Naira briefed them. The HOA's leadership isn't civilian. It's an alias project, reticle division. Government watchdogs with no leash. They've been hiding behind fences and bylaws for decades. Raymond tightened his grip on the wheel. And Sloan? Naira's expression hardened. "He used to run reticle. Until your brother went rogue." They stopped on a ridge overlooking the neighborhood. Through binoculars, they could see Gloria's house. Reinforced now. Surveillance drones hovering. Armed guards at corners disguised as utility workers. Raymond stared at the place he once called home. "How do we get in?" Naira handed him a flash drive. "You don't." "She does." Erin turned, eyes wide. "Me?" Naira nodded. "The system only responds to Guardian DNA. You're not just the key, you're the reset." Raymond's heart raced. "No, she's just a kid." But Erin stood up slowly. "No, I'm not. Not anymore." The plan moved fast. While Naira jammed the drone signals, Raymond and Erin slipped through the storm drain under Lot 12. It reeked of iron and mold, but it led straight to the conduit chamber beneath their own driveway. They emerged in darkness, facing the sealed trapdoor. The same one Daniel Cross had died protecting. Erin stepped forward. The symbol on her arm glowed faintly in the proximity of the panel. She placed her hand on it. It opened. Inside, a cold chamber buzzed with silent electricity. Screens flickered on. Data flowed across in endless strings: names, addresses, calls, secrets. Erin reached for the central terminal. The screen pulsed. Guardian protocol confirmed. Execute sovereign reset? She hesitated. Looked at Raymond. He nodded once. "Do it." She pressed her hand to the pad. Alarms blared above. Gloria's voice shouted through the system speakers. "Step away from the terminal. You don't understand what you're doing." But Erin didn't flinch. "I understand perfectly." With a single touch, the system began to collapse. Feeds went dark. Lights cut off. Neighborhoods blacked out in waves. Reticle's eyes were going blind. Then, an explosion above. The floor shook. Debris rained down. Sloane's voice rang out. "Too late, Ray. You lose." He dropped into the chamber through the collapse. Weapon raised. Gloria behind him, eyes filled with fury. But Naira was faster. A single shot. Sloane staggered back, clutching his side. Gloria screamed and fired wildly, but Raymond tackled her to the ground. Dust and silence. Eden was offline. Reticle had fallen. And Erin, she stood at the center of it all. The girl they underestimated. The niece they tried to erase. The guardian they couldn't break. The silence after the storm felt heavier than the chaos. Sloane lay barely breathing, pinned beneath a collapsed steel beam. Gloria was restrained, hands bound with a strip of coaxial cable ripped from the wreckage. The monitors around them flickered with static, showing a dying system gasping its final breaths. Erin leaned against the cold wall, shaking. Her hand, still glowing faintly from the override, now pulsed slower, like a heart settling after a sprint. Raymond moved carefully toward her. "Are you all right?" She nodded, but her voice cracked. "I saw everything. Files, names, surveillance logs. Decades of watching, people like us." Raymond knelt beside her. "You shut it down. You stopped it." But she shook her head. "It's still out there. Backup nodes. Fail-safes. They wouldn't have built something this deep just to let it die in one room. Naira's voice came from behind a panel. She was bruised, limping, but alert. She's right. This was only the central spine. But we just gave it a stroke. She handed Raymond a charred but intact hard drive. This is the log. Everything Eden recorded since day one. Enough evidence to bring down the entire reticle network if we get it to the right hands. Raymond took it, feeling the weight of justice, guilt, and memory collide in his grip. Aaron turned to Gloria, still kneeling on the floor. You call this a homeowners association. You lied to every neighbor on our street. Gloria met her gaze, defiant. I protected national security. You protected your job, Aaron said, voice steady. My uncle protected people. Sloan coughed violently, blood staining his lips. His hand weakly reached for a fallen transmitter. Raymond stepped over and kicked it away. This ends now. No more hiding behind fences. But just then, an alert buzzed on the central screen. A blinking red icon. Incoming transmission detected. Naira frowned. That's not possible. The signal should be dead. The screen lit up with a new face. Male. Mid-40s. Clean suit. Cold smile. Hello, Guardian. Hello, Raymond. Raymond stepped closer. Who are you? The man's smile widened. Director Helix. Interim Command of Reticle Division. And I want to thank you for doing the hard part for us. Naira cursed under her breath. They rerouted the system. This whole place was a decoy. Helix continued. We knew Daniel Cross would never let Eden fall quietly. We planned for the backlash. The reset you triggered? It cleared the last encryption lock. Now we can rebuild with no trace of the past. Raymond's fists tightened. You used us. Helix shrugged. That's what you people are for. Aaron stepped forward. You're wrong. We're not just people. We're fire. She ripped the hard drive from Naira's hand, slamming it into the last active port. A final command appeared. Upload full contents to public network. She didn't wait. Yes. The screens flashed. The data streamed. Names, photos, logs, transcripts. Every secret reticle buried began pouring into the open net. Helix's face twisted in fury. What have you done? Raymond smiled. We told the truth. The screen cut out. The chamber lights died. Above, the neighborhood blinked to life. News vans, sirens, neighbors gathering, phones ringing. The secrets were out, and Eden could never be hidden again. By dawn, the world was watching. News anchors scrambled to make sense of the data dump. Video feeds stitched together stories of surveillance, intimidation, and betrayal, all rooted in a quiet suburban HOA. Reticle Division's name spread like wildfire across every platform. The footage of Aaron standing inside the Eden chamber, pale, shaking, defiant, became the face of a movement. Raymond watched it all from a rooftop across the street, wrapped in a borrowed hoodie, eyes red from exhaustion. He wasn't used to attention. He wasn't built for it. But Aaron, she stood tall in the middle of it. When reporters pushed past police lines and shouted questions, she didn't flinch. I'm not a hero, she told them. I'm just someone who saw what they try to hide. And I had help. Gloria was led away in handcuffs, face stone cold. Sloan never made it out of the chamber. The beam crushed his ribs, and by the time medics arrived, he was gone. Naira disappeared into the crowd shortly after. No goodbye, no trace, just a slip of paper tucked into Raymond's coat. The shadows will always watch. But now, so will we. That afternoon, Raymond returned to his driveway. The tape had been cleared, the fence cut open, and a small group of neighbors stood waiting. Some he barely recognized. Some he hadn't spoken to in years. But their faces held something new, respect. One man stepped forward, a retired electrician named Marcus. We thought you were just stubborn. We didn't know you were fighting for all of us. Raymond shook his head. I wasn't trying to be anything. I just wanted to park in my own space. Laughter rippled through the crowd, light but real. For the first time in weeks, the tension cracked. Erin joined him, slipping her hand into his. So, what now? He looked around at the houses, the lawns, the false normal that covered so much danger. Then at the quiet hum of his truck, still somehow parked exactly where this all began. Now we live. and we make sure no one forgets what was under this place. Over the next weeks, the fallout spread. Congressional hearings, federal arrests. Eden's surviving backup systems were traced, dismantled. Reticle Division was officially disbanded, its files made public, its agents investigated. Families across the country found out they'd been watched, judged, cataloged without ever knowing. But something else happened too. Communities changed. People questioned their HOAs. Neighbors talked more. Fences became lower. The idea that someone could own silence, own control, started to unravel. One morning, a woman knocked on Raymond's door. She wore a government badge but didn't flash it like a weapon. "Mr. Cross, I'm here to talk about Eden's protocols and about Aaron's rights as a whistleblower." He let her in, sat across the table, watched as Aaron poured her coffee like any normal teenager, even as her face was still on magazine covers. "She's not a whistleblower," Raymond said. "She's just a kid who didn't back down." The agent nodded. "That's exactly why we want her voice." Later that evening, Aaron sat by the old trapdoor. It was sealed now, the system beneath it cold and dead. But she lit a candle. Just one. Raymond joined her, setting down 2 mugs of tea. "What's that for?" She pointed to the flame. "For Dad. For everyone who got caught in the quiet." Raymond's throat tightened. "He'd be proud of you, of what you did." She looked up at him. "He'd be proud of you too." They sat there until the stars came out. No cameras, no headlines. Just them, the soft hum of cicadas, and a silence that, for once, felt peaceful. At the edge of the street, a new sign had been posted. Not a warning. Not a code. State reserved parking, protected under Public Access Act. Raymond smiled. Took them long enough. They both laughed. And in that moment, everything, every lie, every buried truth, every scar, felt like the price of something greater. Because now, the watchers were being watched. And the story no one was supposed to tell had already been heard.